She's the newest of her kind. The USS Ronald Reagan. 97,000 tons of steel, copper, silicone, and plastic. A floating city of 6,000 souls, the crown jewel of the United States Navy. The warfighting power she can bring to bear is staggering. 90 state-of-the-art aircraft, 4 million plus pounds of bombs and missiles. Weapons to meet threats on every side. Advanced computing and electronic systems that take the Reagan far beyond the capabilities of her sister ships. And now the Reagan will prove her mettle as she embarks upon an historic journey that will take her across thousands of miles of open ocean and into waters no Nimitz-class carrier has yet dared to cross. USS Ronald Reagan was commissioned in July 2003.
4-6.
Now, after a 10-month shakedown period, she's ready to leave her birthplace and sail to her new home port in San Diego, California. A journey of over 20,000 miles.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's update on the bridge for getting underway one last time from Norfolk, Virginia.
On the bridge, the captain and his department heads assemble for a final pre-departure meeting. The meeting is led by Commander Terry Rucker, the ship's navigator, a key player in the day's events.
We'll start out. Go ahead, Ops.
Morning, Captain. Harbor events this morning, we have the arrival of the USS Cole. She's coming down the channel right now, as you can see her.
Taking a ship as large as the Reagan through a narrow channel is a delicate affair. Every aspect of the departure is reviewed before the first lines are cast off.
Engineering command are ready for underway. A slight change in ship's draft. We're 38.5 forward, 38.0 aft. So we've gained 700 tons over the night. 95,700 tons.
700 tons.
Draft refers to how low the ship rides in the water. The heavier the ship, the greater her draft. Captain James A. Simons is the Reagan's commanding officer. A former executive officer on the USS Nimitz and the USS Eisenhower, the Reagan is Captain Simons' first carrier command.
Captain Billy Moore will be coming over from Port Ops. He'll be our pilot this morning, Captain. The checklist is underway, should be all set, and I think we're over.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one. Carry on.
The day's excitement is tempered by the lingering threat of terrorism. Sailors on shore and armed patrol boats on the river maintain a steady watch.
3 short.
With 3 short blasts of the ship's horn, the Reagan is on her way. The voyage to California will take 8 weeks. But this is more than a journey from point A to point B. It's a chance for the crew to hone their skills and come together as a functioning team. And this will be the first introduction of America's newest carrier to the world. Through port calls and joint operations, the USS Ronald Reagan will pay her respects to America's friends in the region.
Counting officer, my rudder is right. 15 degrees. No new course given, sir. Very well.
The Reagan is a seagoing city with her own hospital, optometrist, recycling center, post office, weather station, filling station, and restaurant. And yet, all of this is directed toward a single end, the delivery of air power. Without her air wing, this floating metropolis has no reason to exist. As the carrier steams for open water, the pilots of the 14th and 41st Fighter Squadrons make ready for the short hop out to their new home at sea.
Today we're taking the airplanes out to the carrier, and we're going to get everybody carrier qualified again. Everybody's going to get their required traps, carrier arrestments. And then once we finish that, we'll be back to what we call cyclic ops, which is just going out and doing training flights to maintain our combat currency.
The Reagan's primary aircraft is the FA-18 EF Super Hornet. A significant upgrade of prior models, the Super Hornet has an extended combat range of 1,275 nautical miles and a top speed of Mach 1.8.
On the flight deck. Got the first aircraft approaching the initial here. Let's stand clear of the port catwalk and the foul line. Stand by to recover aircraft.
Safe flight operations are the ultimate responsibility of one man, the Air Boss. From his perch in primary flight control, Air Boss Will Cooney oversees every aspect of the landing cycle. Landing a 15-ton airplane on a 300-foot flight deck at speeds of over 200 miles an hour takes nerve and skill, the hallmarks of the naval aviator. A Super Hornet misses the arresting wires. The pilot goes to full throttle and roars back into the sky. The maneuver, known as a bolter, is not uncommon, and the crew expects to see more of them than usual on this trip, due to one of the changes made to the Reagan's design. While other Nimitz-class carriers feature 4 arresting wires, the Reagan has only 3.
Most modern carriers have 4 wires, so you've got a slightly larger area on the flight deck that you can catch a wire and trap. It hasn't had too large of an impact, but I have noticed a couple of extra bolters where we miss a wire and we have to go around. And not having that 4th wire, I think, is making just a little bit of a difference.
And while the loss of 1 wire makes the pilot's job harder, it does have advantages. These 2 sailors operate one of the Reagan's 3 arresting gear engines. 3 sets of arresting gear means less manpower is required for flight operations. The redesign also has another benefit. By eliminating 1 set of arresting gear, it was possible to make each of the remaining 3 stronger. On prior carriers, planes with leftover bombs were too heavy to land and unused ordnance was jettisoned. The stronger wires allow aircraft returning with valuable precision-guided munitions to land with their ordnance packages intact.
Hello, boss.
Clear Landset Rhino,
Hi, Keg. How are you, sir?
Clear deck, sir.
Welcome. 2.9. Clear Landset Rhino, clear deck.
Running on the window with 3
Landset Rhino 440, clear deck.
The next morning, the ship pauses for a solemn milestone.
My grandfather passed away 2 years ago. He was a merchant marine for 31 years, and he just always spoke of how fond he was of the military and how great it was to him. So I felt like he deserved a burial at sea. I didn't think that he was going to be the first burial at sea off Ronald Reagan, and when I found that out, I was like, wow, I was kind of overwhelmed, and very appreciative that the command would come together for, you know, one sailor. I'm happy that it was me. Since I followed his footsteps, I'm happy that he received the proper burial and I was the person who got to do it. The military does take care of their people.
The Reagan is literally an arsenal at sea. On active deployment, she will carry over 4 million pounds of bombs and missiles. 500-pound BDU-45 general-purpose bombs are fitted with their guidance fins. The bombs are then transported to the flight deck by means of the ammunition elevator. Only when a bomb is mounted to the aircraft's hardpoints is the arming mechanism inserted into the nose. The bomb is now considered live and ready for use. The jet is also loaded with AIM-7 Sparrow missiles, a radar-guided air-to-air missile with a 90-pound high-explosive warhead. The Sparrow is credited with downing 25 Iraqi aircraft during the first Gulf War.
On the flight deck, aircrew now manning for Event 1 launch. It'll be a Case 1 launch, Case 1 recovery. Outside air temperature 79 degrees, altimeter 3012. Sound time for all personnel, non-live flight operations to leave the flight deck catwalk area. Those remaining on the flight deck must get the proper flight deck uniform. Helmets on, securely fastened, goggles down, sleeves rolled down. Life vest on, securely fastened. Make sure all your tools are accounted for. Check chocks, chains, loose gear about the deck. Ensure jet exhaust and upper exhaust isn't blowing on anything that might hurt us or blow us up. Time to start up the GO aircraft. Start them up.
The true power of a Nimitz-class carrier rests with the air wing. Her pilots practice relentlessly to stay sharp. Near constant flight operations are a fact of life. The first plane up in today's exercise is an E-2C Hawkeye, the Navy's version of the Air Force AWACS. Circling above the carrier, the Hawkeye's radar can monitor 3 million cubic miles of airspace and keep track of hundreds of contacts. The Hawkeye can warn the carrier of incoming threats, as well as direct the Reagan's planes toward their targets. With the Hawkeye on its way, the Super Hornets line up at the catapults.
The catapult is basically a very large steam cannon. You have to understand, you accelerate, in this case, a 47,000-pound aircraft from 0 to about 140 miles an hour in 309 feet. When we're ready to fire the cats, the shuttle will come back. They'll drop the launch bar down into the shuttle throat, and then we'll be ready to shoot them. This is an F-18EF, otherwise known as a Rhino. We've got it up to bringing it into the mouth of the shuttle. As soon as he does, they'll put it under tension. The deck edge operator who's working with the shooter is over there with his finger in the air saying the catapult is ready to fire. Aircraft's under tension, shoot the sky. Double check the fins, saluting the pilot. Ready to go on deck edge, all the way down. And now the deck edge has the signal to fire and is ready to go. Keep close sides, hit the button, and the aircraft will go.
The mission of these planes is a little different today. Instead of defending the carrier, they'll be simulating an enemy on the attack, allowing the Reagan to test her upgraded defensive systems.
Just tell everybody to go to weapons free. All stations weapons free at this time. All stations TAO. Aircraft side numbers 232 and 222 are going to be the players for the next DTE event.
This is the Combat Direction Center. This base is the heart as far as defending the ship and assisting the staffs to defend the battle group.
Adiak TAO, query track 1330.
There's a lot of new threats that are out there, missiles that have a much greater speed, much greater capability. So our new system here is more automated. All in all, that helps us because if you have a missile coming inbound, say at 1,000, 2,000 miles an hour, sometimes we have literally 10, 20 seconds to react. That is not a lot of time. So now with the new software, we can just turn a key or two, set a few settings, and the system should be able to do it all as far as defend the ship against primarily a missile attack.
So now it's basically when you feel comfortable, it's a threat to go weapons free. You just need to make that call.
Roger that.
2 Super Hornets simulate incoming enemy aircraft. The Reagan's defensive system easily tracks both, but only fires on one of them. The second plane gets through. The Reagan is vulnerable.
Had a no-fire zone on one.
What's that?
We had a no-fire zone on one. We had 2 aircraft that were doing run-ins, basically coming in at high speed, a profile of like an attack aircraft. The first aircraft, the system automatically engaged it. We put in a sign, or basically put the directors out on the second aircraft, but the NATO Sea Sparrow did not fire on the second target. So we're going back now and we're going to talk about it and troubleshoot what happened there and see can we figure out this why the system didn't fire on the second target.
The workday doesn't end as darkness falls. Carrier aviation is serious business, and the pilots and crew take every opportunity to practice. The Air Wing gears up for night ops.
Flying at night is definitely a lot more challenging than flying in the daytime. When you're doing cyclic ops, which means you're doing a launch and then a recovery and then a launch and then a recovery just back to back, up to the flight deck, there's lights moving everywhere. There's engines turning everywhere. It's a scary place. It's a dangerous place. You taxi up to the catapult, and that's kind of where your adrenaline starts going, especially on a moonless night. You get shot off the catapult, going from 0 to about 150, 160 knots in a span of less than 200 feet. You're airborne, and the only thing that's telling you you're airborne is your instruments telling you, hey, we're climbing away and we've got good airspeed.
While a pilot in the cockpit may feel like he's out there alone,
Bridge, you're up, Captain. 30, ramp.
there is actually a highly trained team backing him up. One of the Reagan's new IT systems makes their job easier. The ISIS, or Integrated Shipboard Information System, allows its operators to monitor and update the vital statistics of every plane in the air and transmit that information throughout the ship over the Reagan's state-of-the-art fiber optic network.
We keep track of fuel states, keep track of diverted aircraft, we keep track of airborne aircraft. Everything that's on this screen updates throughout the ship. So if I update a fuel state for 211, it's not going to just update on one board, it's going to update throughout the ISIS system.
With night exercises over, the jets return to the Reagan.
Any pilot that tells you that they're not scared landing on the boat at night isn't telling you the truth. And it's not so much a landing as a controlled crash. You're coming down at 700 or 800 feet per minute, slamming into the deck and hoping that you catch a wire. On a dark night with a little bit of weather, it can definitely be sporty. Naval aviators have been doing it for, over 50 years now, landing on the boat. And I've been doing it at night for a long time. Super Hornet's got a lot of things that help us out, a lot of electronics that help us out, but carrier aviation's carrier aviation. Landing around the boat, whether you're flying a Hellcat 50, 60 years ago or flying a Super Hornet today, it's still hard work.
Command Master Chief Catherine Henson is the highest-ranking enlisted person on the Reagan, and the first female Command Master Chief on an aircraft carrier.
Sir?
Hi, Master Chief.
And here we are. It's the XO's office and cabin. Very nicely done, isn't it? What's going to happen next is we do what's called Spirit of 76, and we walk around the ship. It's an hour every day that we clean the ship. The XO and I walk around to make sure people are doing that and to also tell people they're doing a good job.
The XO, or executive officer, is Andres Brugal, a decorated fighter pilot and veteran of Desert Storm. Brugal is the second in command and oversees many of the carrier's day-to-day operations.
You have a place you want to go?
I'd like to walk the 03 level, port and starboard side.
Okay, we'll do that.
Go this way.
So that one?
No, we're not sitting during Spirit of 76.
This is the group. Okay.
They clean during Spirit of 76 just like we do.
You guys play the same rules we play? Yes, sir. Okay, get off of the computers. During Spirit of 76, there's no computers, no nothing. There's cleaning. Okay? And if you need me to go to the Chief of Staff, I'll be happy to explain to the Chief of Staff. Okay? You're on my ship, play by my rules, please.
First class and chiefs need to be out supervising. Can you wear your cover with your hair like that? No? So you know your hair's not in regs? Okay, you gonna fix that for me? Great, thanks.
As the ship approaches the equator, the crew gets ready to take part in an age-old naval tradition.
You are specifically charged with crimes of standing in an upright position in the presence of an honorable shellback, from being from Phoenix, Arizona, which I'm from New York, but posing as a New York Yankee fan from the Bronx, which I am. I'm in a lot of trouble tomorrow. Man.
Apparently, I have allowed myself to be covered with a slime that's usually found on polywogs and lower specimen of the realm. And this subpoena tells me I've been charged with the crimes of standing in the upright position in the presence of an honorable shellback, for impersonating a navigator when you know you are really a bird from the slimy backwoods of Kansas.
Basically, when you cross the equator for the first time, you become a shellback. Right now, I'm a polywog. I'm slimy, I'm disgusting, and I have to get cleansed so King Neptune will accept me in his kingdom. King Neptune is the god of the sea, and it's his domain. We have to make sure we're acceptable for him.
I'm not going to back down from these shellbacks, and I refer to them as smellbacks. Being in the Navy over 20 years, I have just not had the opportunity to cross the equator. So it's kind of late in my career to do that. I'll be one of the senior wogs during the shellback ceremony, but I'm ready for it.
In addition to her planes, bombs, and missiles, the Reagan carries a number of .50 caliber machine guns for use against small boats. As with any other system on the ship, the crew trains constantly to stay proficient.
Left, 15 degrees. Coming to course 157 degrees, sir. Very well.
Although the Reagan still has an old-style ship's wheel, the day of Navy captains shouting full speed ahead and clanging the ship's telegraph are gone. Instead, nearly every operation on the ship's bridge, as well as most other functions on board, are controlled by the new Integrated Communications and Advanced Network, or ICANN.
Basically what it ties in is the phone system, the announcing system, navigation, all the engineering aboard ship, and it also controls sound-powered telephone interfaces, so you can tie into these little digital phones. I think it's a good system. I think it's a system that should be implemented on every ship.
Landing a jet on an aircraft carrier is a team effort. The landing signal officers, or LSOs, work on the flight deck. It's their job to ensure that conditions are safe for recovery.
When a plane comes in, some of the things that may cause us some issues there are the weather, of course, if it deteriorates or they can't see the lineup because of water on the deck. Still showing them high. But probably the most common thing we have is an aircraft that is in a configuration that it's not used to being in, like they can't get their flaps down or something along those lines there, which causes them to be in a degraded landing situation. In And if he gets out of parameters to land or the deck is not ready for him to land, we just wave him off. And all we do is we're holding these pickles here, and we just squeeze the red button there, and he knows it's time to go around without me even saying anything to him. And he'll just add full power, go around, and then try it again next time. It's actually a pretty good feeling when your buddies put their lives in your hands, and you know, you bring them aboard. We're not always needed, but we're always here. And it's nice that somebody comes up to you one day and says, "Hey, thanks, Paddles. I needed you out there tonight." And sometimes that gives you a good feeling inside.
The Reagan has been underway for 7 days, and her crew is growing comfortable with life at sea. But the daily routine is about to be interrupted. As the carrier crosses the equator, a distinguished visitor arrives for an important ceremony.
Good morning.
Backwards. You can't follow directions. You're supposed to be inside out and backwards.
God, you're wrong. I'll be back.
Of course he's wrong. He's a wog.
Wog. Navigator wog.
Ah, they can't do anything right.
I've crossed into your domain many times, but never had the chance to formally meet you. So it's a good.
Many times I've been on these ships, but this is a great one, sir.
Why, thank you very much, sir.
The shellback ceremony has been a tradition for hundreds of years, and while it's been toned down for a more politically correct Navy, it still contains many elements of the ceremonies of old. Ritual cleansing, boat races, and any other good-natured humiliations the shellbacks can think of. With 1,500 wogs on board, King Neptune and his royal party have to work in shifts.
Supply department, turn hot! I'm gonna give it some facing movements. If you want to be a shellback, you ought to get this right. Face, port! Good job, you did good.
The ordeal ends after the wogs are purified of their slime
Low kiss to the raw baby. Low kiss to the raw baby.
and have paid their respects to the bosun's belly.
Whoa! Stop!
After the wogs have proven their worth,
Nose to the deck. Nose to the deck.
they're ordained by the King of the Deep as proud members of the solemn and ancient order of the shellback. With all the wogs successfully deslimed, the crew gets back to business. A few hundred miles south of the equator is the Reagan's first port of call, Rio de Janeiro. A carrier's mission is not just power projection, but diplomacy. Port visits and joint operations with allies are a way of strengthening international ties. This morning, Brazilian naval aviators will get a close-up look at an American carrier as they practice touch-and-go landings on the Reagan. AF-1A attack jets of Brazil's only fixed-wing naval aviation squadron approach the carrier. The AF-1A is an upgrade of the McDonnell Douglas A-4 Skyhawk. The A-4 was a primary American carrier-launched strike aircraft during the Vietnam War. Today, the Brazilians carry on the Skyhawk's proud tradition.
They're doing okay. Normal mistakes, some good corrections, some not good ones, but it's good for us to show that Brazil can do this a little bit.
After flight ops, an excited crew gets their first glimpse of Brazil.
Oh, this is awesome. Now I'm only 19, look at me. Beautiful Rio de Janeiro. Can't beat it.
With the ship safely in port, it's time to make it official and drop anchor.
Pinman, pull the pin. Trip the starboard. Release the hydraulic brake.
Safely at anchor, the ship is made ready to receive visitors. A museum honoring the carrier's namesake is set up on the hangar deck. The crew heads off for a day's liberty. For many of these young sailors, it's their first time setting foot on foreign soil. As the first wave of sailors heads off to explore Rio, those remaining on board practice a critical drill.
All right, let's go. I need my baby ready status. Let's go.
The Reagan carries a tremendous supply of jet fuel, as well as a staggering arsenal of bombs and missiles. A fire reaching the fuel handling system or weapons magazine would be a catastrophic event.
Let's make sure we get all of our gear out, get it inventoried.
In such a potentially hazardous environment, firefighting training is crucial.
This is general quarters. Basically what it is should the ship be damaged, everybody on board is a firefighter in one form or another. I am an administrator. I deal with paperwork and computers all day, but when they call this away, I put on the gear, I fight the fire.
The general quarters drill will continue far into the night and involve many departments. As damage control teams continue their work, the first revelers return from Rio.
What I find Brazil, I put a Brazilian flag towel because it was raining this evening, and everybody got soaked. That's all I got.
I got a cool towel and some souvenirs for the family.
This is a recorder. And then I got this. It's a necklace and a set of earrings.
It is a Ronald Reagan CVN 76 license plate.
Hey, monkey. His name's Bob. He's a really nice guy. Say hi, Bob. Really cool guy. I got him in Copacabana. Really nice. He's really friendly. Why don't you say hi to him?
How you doing, Bob?
All right, Bob. We gotta go sign in. I'll see you later.
Make sure Bob signs in.
All right.
The excitement of the carrier's first port visit is tempered by sad news. Ronald Wilson Reagan has died. The carrier's bustling tempo quiets as the crew pays tribute to America's 40th president.
The ceremony is done every day. It's what we call colors, morning colors. At 8 a.m., we raise the flag all the way full staff. Because we have been directed and we are honoring the passing of President Reagan, the flag is then raised full staff and lowered to half staff.
Heading south from Brazil, the Reagan's next destination is Valparaiso, Chile, on the opposite side of the continent. Ordinarily, the Reagan would round the tip of South America via the Drake Passage, but the rough seas of the passage are legendary, and all ships, even one as powerful as the Reagan, are wise to respect them.
You know, Nimitz came around here in October, November of 2001. They were down here in the summer and had 30-foot seas and had some damage to the ship. So here we are coming down in the winter.
Months earlier, the Reagan's navigator came up with a bold plan to spare his ship the torments of a transit through the Drake Passage. His proposal? Take the Reagan through the Straits of Magellan. The Straits of Magellan form a passage between the Atlantic and Pacific that cuts across the southern tip of Chile. By transiting through the straits, the carrier will avoid the perilous seas of the Drake Passage.
3 nautical miles.
But this path holds its own dangers. The straits cut a narrow labyrinth through mountainous terrain, a navigational challenge to any vessel, much less one of the largest ships in the world. Frequent storms blow in winter, often bringing winds of more than 100 miles an hour. The transit through the straits will take approximately 30 hours, with dangerous storms roaring across the area every 36 to 48 hours. The navigator and weather team must time the passage perfectly.
2012Z is when we enter the mouth of the straits. Again, light winds, not bad. Here's the monster low coming at us, starting to deepen rapidly, moving slowly east. Then we start heading north, 35 to 45 knots of wind. We have this low pressure system moving up this way. This low pressure system is moving due east. So here we are. So they're coming one right after the other. If we delay down here, we're putting ourselves in danger by letting this thing come up on us.
At 7 a.m. on June 20th, 2004, the USS Ronald Reagan becomes the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to enter the Straits of Magellan. Once inside the narrow passage, there's no turning back. Responsibility for success or failure rests squarely upon the shoulders of the Reagan's navigator.
Okay, we've been up since about 5 o'clock this morning. Here was our 7 o'clock position, and this is the entrance to the Straits of Magellan. And then at 0900, we were right at the mouth of the Primera Angostura, which is the first narrows of the Straits of Magellan. Now we are currently, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and we are currently in the middle of this basin here before we start the Segundo Primastera, which is the second narrows. This is about 4 miles wide through the second narrows. Once we come through there, we'll head south, and then we will anchor approximately 1400 this afternoon at Punta Arenas, Chile. And there we will stay overnight, and we will pick up anchor around 0500 tomorrow morning to go through what I would consider the more interesting part, the more picturesque part, and the more challenging part of the Straits of Magellan.
With exercises and air operations suspended for the transit, it's a good time for maintenance teams ship-wide to catch up on important work. After anchoring overnight, the Reagan is again underway.
The new low is forming over here. Yeah.
On the bridge, the captain gets an update from the weather team.
This whole system here is no worry to us. Okay. The other low that I was talking about earlier is developing out here. Okay. That's the one that's going to be moving across this way on the 23rd. That's the one that we want to slow down for and let pass by. All right. This down here is the reason why we did not want to delay, because this guy is going to be coming up this way. All right. It's all a timing issue, and if we play it just right, we'll be out of harm's way. We'll get some C's, but we expected that.
We expected that.
This is incredible. I think it's even more beautiful than I thought it was going to be. Certainly never thought I'd be in the Straits of Magellan. Really special. Young sailors have never been to sea before, to be on this ship doing these amazing things, going through the Straits of Magellan, which there haven't been any Navy sailors ever get to do it. They'll have some stories, and something they'll never forget.
Boy, it just drops right off.
right off the water.
We can hit the land before we actually run aground.
When I reported on board the Ronald Reagan, I was told three things by an ex-commanding officer that I had flying helicopters. He told me first, he says, the job as navigator, you won't get any sleep. Number two, it'll be the best tour of your naval career. Number three, you won't get any sleep. For 1 and 3, he's absolutely on the mark. For number 2, he underestimated it because it is the very best job I've had in the Navy. And for a farm boy from Kansas, I certainly have got to see the world, and this by far has to be the highlight.
The navigator and weather team have timed it just right. The Reagan emerges from the straits into 12-foot seas. Uncomfortable, perhaps, but no real threat to the carrier.
I'm from Tennessee, and I've never been to the ocean that much. This is my first time out, and I'm definitely not used to this. My stomach is just churning, and I've got a slight headache. I wish I could lay down, but I have to work, so feeling like this is just part of the job.
As the Reagan approaches the United States, the pilots of her temporary air wing make their final catapult launches and depart the carrier. The happy day has come. After 8 long weeks, the Reagan is finally within cell phone range of the mainland, just off the port side, proof that she is home. The sailors man the rails one last time. Rounding the light at Point Loma, the Reagan enters the harbor.
The days that I have come back from deployment are the best days of my Navy career. I'm excited for the crew because San Diego is such a marvelous place. And they're going to see a return that is like nothing I have ever seen. We're supposed to have something like 7,000 or 8,000 family, plus another 1,000 distinguished visitors on the pier. What an exciting day it is. The same as just about every ship which comes back from a deployment of whatever length. We'll upgrade systems, fix systems, and then for the next 15 months we'll be employable. It just sort of depends on what the Navy and the nation needs.
A journey from the eastern to western coast of the United States has been a bonding experience for the 6,000 men and women who make up the crew of the Reagan. They have worked and trained together and mastered every nuance of their mighty vessel. Now, anchored in San Diego, the USS Ronald Reagan is truly home. As her crew rushes to greet their families, America's newest carrier stands ready to rise to her nation's call.
No one wants peace more than a military man. As I've said to my sailors quite a bit, the best thing that could happen to this ship is that our very presence and our training and our credibility means that we don't have to use it. That our presence, wherever the nation puts us, is enough. In the words of President Reagan, peace through strength.
Next, meet the men and the women who dominated the skies and changed the way battles were fought. Wings at War, coming up next on the Military Channel.